good day to kind of have a family talk. And so I want to start using these two parables that Melinda read. One is about this small mustard seed that grows into this significant plant. And the other is about a faithful farmer that day in and day out, waking up, going to sleep, waking up, going to sleep, and through that patience and faithfulness, something significant grows, and the harvest, the abundant harvest, comes through. And one message that we can take from these parables is that it's the small things in life. The small things that day to day we are faithful with that end up creating great harvests for our life. That we find deep fulfillment in these moments that came because of the small things day after day. Oftentimes we're focused on the big thing. And that once that big thing happens, once we have that big thing, once we are that big thing, then we will find true fulfillment. Once we are married, once we have kids, once we have grandkids, once we have a promotion, once we own a home, once we retire, then in that moment, we will find fulfillment. But the reality is, on those big things, you wake up the next morning the same person you were the day before when you didn't have those big things. It didn't change who you were. Might have changed your title or your status, your tax bracket, but it doesn't change who you are. It's those little things, faithfully, day after day. Those are the things that change who we are. And in those faithfulness of doing the things over and over, the little things over and over, is ultimately where we know we find fulfillment. When we look back at where we are today and think about the journey that brought us here. And so this morning, I want to take that imagery and I want to apply it to us as a church. It's tempting for us to imagine big things that we can do. I mean, it's in our name, the Big Red Church. But as I assess who we are as a congregation, and more importantly, maybe who we need to be, that we're not one of those churches that needs to do big things, big programs, and big facilities. That I think for us, it's really the little things. It's the mustard-sized things, mustard seed-sized things that will bring us true fulfillment. And if you'll remember, we had a group of 12 people from our congregation go through this, what we call the healthy congregation process. And we looked at 4 mustard seed size things that we can be doing as a congregation. The first is building trust. The first is showing respect. The second is building trust. Making collaborative decisions together. And then lastly, it's how we give feedback and how we handle feedback. And so I want us to think of these things as these 4 mustard seeds that we as a congregation can be doing. And I believe that if we are faithful with these small things consistently, day after day, Sunday after Sunday, that we will have a congregation that we find deep fulfillment in. So the first one is showing respect. And when I say it out loud, it does feel very small. Like, you roll your eyes, of course, showing respect. That's what you learn in preschool. But we know that it's a significant thing. That by showing respect and feeling respected, just like that mustard seed that grows into something significant, by us showing respect to one another and us feeling respected in this place, something significant can grow. And when I think about respect, I think about showing people the dignity that they possess. A few weeks ago, we had Zach Dara here from the Poverello House that works primarily with unhoused neighbors in our community. And Zach said that the role of the Poverello House is not to give somebody their dignity back. Because as someone who is the child of God, a bearer of God's image, dignity is something that no human can lose. That every person bears this dignity within them. And he said that it's their job at the Poverello House to shine a light on their dignity, to remind them of their dignity. And I want that to be what happens here at Big Red as well. And I think it happens with any unhoused folks that come into our sanctuary and into our church and become members of this church, that they should be reminded of their dignity. We should be reminding them of their dignity. That we would show them the respect that they deserve, the respect that the image of God deserves. And in the same way, this church has had a history of people, members of this church, that have fancy titles. And my hope is that those people that carry those fancy titles, that they would be treated with respect, not because of the titles that they have, because probably throughout their day, they're shown respect. Respect not for who they are, but respect for the power that they have. People show them respect fearing that if they don't show them respect, something bad might happen to them. Or they show them respect thinking that if I show them respect, something good will happen to me. But that action, that relationship is not about the dignity of that person, is it? It's about the power of that title. And I hope that those members of our congregation, that anybody who walks into our church, that out in the world that carries a fancy title, that they would be treated with dignity as the human individual that they are. Not called by their title, but called by their first name. They would be known and seen and appreciated. And that's what respect really is. You see, respect is not a formula that just works for everybody. We show respect in different ways, and we feel respected in different ways. Some of us feel respected when we're given attention. Some of us feel disrespected if we're given too much attention. And so the secret is paying attention to the person in front of you, watching them and their body language, their words, that we would treat them as individuals, not some number that would walk into our church, but a person that bears the image of God. Respect is this small little thing, but it's foundational. And if somebody doesn't feel respected in our congregation, then there's no way that we can really create a really fulfilling experience, a really fulfilling community for them. The next is also a small word, trust, but it's a big thing. It's hard to get and even harder to get back once you've lost somebody's trust. And here's the thing, there was a time in our American culture that churches and religious institutions, by the fact of them being a church, automatically earned trust. But we know that that is not the case anymore. That if anything, church has lost the trust of many people. That the institution of the church is seen with some skepticism, if not outright distrust. And what I believe after meeting a number of people who've come to this church in the last 10 years or so, that the people who come to our church, the people who come to Big Red now, are people who've been hurt by other churches. And they have got good reasons not to trust a church. And so they come up with protection on and shields on. Thank God for the back row of the sanctuary because it's a safe place for them to sit. Come in and exit quickly. I don't know about the 4 of you back there, but it's a sacred space, that back few rows of the pew. Because it's a place that somebody can start to build trust in our church. And so we should be thinking, how do we earn people's trust? And we could spend a lot of time talking about this, but I do want to name one thing that we have not done a good enough job of since I've been here when it comes to building trust. Since I've been here, we have not done a good job of having good financial transparency. There has not been a regular report in any of our newsletters saying simply of what income is and what expense is, where we are in comparison to what our projected budget is. Something that, in my opinion, is pretty standard for any church and any institution, and it's something that you all should expect. That when you belong to a church and you give to a church, that communication between the institution of the church, the committees, the individuals who are overseeing processes, that there'd be good communication. And that's something that we have not done a good enough job on, and there's some good reasons for it. Our wonderful Penny Peterson, who has been volunteering as a bookkeeper for years, and her family doing it for decades. We celebrated her retirement, and we brought on a bookkeeper out of house, and that didn't quite work out as we were hoping. And so Penny is come back quickly to kind of help us bridge the gap. But in the meantime, we've put together a really beautiful group of people who have great expertise in finances, but more importantly, creativity and imagination and a big vision for where we can be as a congregation. And so I bring that up, again, probably not something that you would usually bring up in a sermon, but something that's important. That the way that we communicate would build trust with each other. And that's something that we can do as staff and committees, but it's also really important that that's happening at the individual level as well. We could have all our ducks in a row, but if individuals within the congregation are burning trust with each other, it doesn't matter. And so that's something, it's a little small thing, but it goes a big way. The third one is how we make decisions. And this happens anytime you get more than one person together. You're going to make decisions as soon as you leave. Maybe you'll make decisions as to whether you're going to go to the brunch or not. You'll make decisions of what you'll do when you get home. And with all decisions, there are different positions. And sometimes those positions are opposing. And they go against each other. And you can't do one and the other. And that certainly happens within the church as well. In my interview process, I told the search committee that I actually enjoy church politics. And there was this gasp and concerned look on their face. And it's not that I enjoy infighting within a congregation or power dynamics within a congregation, but what I love is that there are individuals with different interests, different visions, different hopes. And there's relationships, people who trust each other. And that to have a loving community, we need to factor all those things in. And so when we just focus on people's positions, we only see how we are in opposition. And oftentimes it's either one party wins or the other party wins. But if we can move from positions to what people's interests are. The interests that drive those positions, we can find things that we can agree on. And there's more that we can say to that, and we will in the future. The last is how we give feedback. And feedback is such an important thing. You can never get better unless you have a sense of what you did right and what you can do better in the future. But we all know that there's a difference between criticism or complaint and constructive feedback. And I'm going to illustrate this by sharing a complaint that I have about my kids' school. It's actually less about the school, and it's more about the parents and the adults dropping the students off in the morning. You see, my kids' school is a K-8 school, and every morning there are 2 areas to drop off your kids. If you have K through 3rd grade, you drop your kids off in the parking lot, you enter one way and you exit another. And there's somebody waiting there, especially for the little kids, to greet them and make sure they head in the right direction and to keep the cars moving smoothly. It's great. However, 4th through 8th grade is where it gets wild, and that's where my concern is. And if you can record this and bring it up to Bullard Talent, I'd appreciate it. See, there used to be 2 entrances, one for 4th through 5th graders and one for middle schoolers. But they remodeled the middle school section, and now you can't go in anyway. So there's one way in, which is probably a good, safe way to do it. But there's no one directing traffic, and so what happens is that parents or adults will drop off the students, and then they'll stop there on the street, on the curb, checking their phone or doing their makeup or finishing their breakfast, and it causes the traffic to get backed up out to Palm. I'm sorry. My complaint is, and the complaint that I'm tempted to give the principal, is that it's a complete mess, somebody needs to do something about it, and I'm sick and tired of it. But we want to move away from complaint, and we want to move towards inviting people to collaborate. You see, a complaint is really easy to give, but it's hard to receive. A complaint is a mess that you dump on somebody's lap. And once you dump it on their lap, you're no longer responsible for it, and they're 100% responsible for it. We've all had those moments where somebody has dumped a complaint in our lap, they walk away, and now we're stuck dealing with it. But an invitation to collaboration is different. It's this realization that we're in a relationship with one another, and that we probably both want things to be better. And that doesn't mean it's just your problem or just my problem, but it's something that we can work out together. So what I want to do with the principal is, a few weeks before school starts, send her an email and say, I love how smoothly the drop-off process goes for the younger kids. And it would be great if we can have that same smoothness happening for the older kids. And I'm willing to volunteer the first 3 weeks of school to essentially move traffic along. Wow, thank you. That feels differently, doesn't it? And then I end with, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this or other ideas you might have to make the drop-off process more smoother. No longer am I just dumping it on her lap, as it's her problem, but it's something that I want to work on together to make it better. And I'm open to her opinions as well. Now, my kids, I'm sure, will hate this, us having to get there early, and then me being in an ugly orange vest, and all their friends that see me yelling at their parents to move the cars along. I'll let you know how it goes. These are 4 little seeds. And these are 4 little seeds that isn't going to be flashy. No one's going to be saying, hey, look at what Big Red does, this innovative thing that they're doing at their church, groundbreaking ways of being a church. But they're the day-to-day things that really matter. They're the day-to-day faithful things that matter. The way that we would scatter these seeds of respect and trust and collaboration and invitation. And it won't be that, oh, one day all of a sudden we have this new thing constructed. It'll be a process. It'll be weeks, months, and maybe even years. But if we are faithful with these small things, we will look back and we'll see this harvest. This harvest here in our congregation. And maybe it's a harvest of there's more people here, there's more things going on, but more important than that is there's a real harvest of fulfillment to be a part of this community. And so let us be faithful with these small things and having faith that God will use us to bring in a mighty harvest. Amen.